Okay. Well, hello. My name is Kevin Gorm. I work at the ECC on the wallet team, building wallets and all tools related to wallet building. Today, we are going to talk about hiring for $0,000. So let's start with a scenario. Imagine that you were seeking a job. Um, and as you're going through that process, one of the first things I think that will come to mind for most people is salary. Not that salary is the most important thing, but when you're working, you kind of need to be compensated for that time. The time has value. The value that you add deserves compensation. So, for this new job in this scenario, you might wonder if it's one of those great six-figure jobs. And the answer is no. Um, it's not even half of that. It's not a $25,000 job. Um, and this job doesn't even pay minimum wage. So consider that for a moment. You're seeking a job and you're going to take a job that pays nothing. That's kind of the situation that we're in as we're looking for developers. This would be okay if it was an internship and maybe the developers were new, fresh out of college, starting their careers and looking for opportunities to grow their skill set. But that's also not the case. We're looking for highly skilled senior developers with marketable skills. Um, and so when you have developers that have a premium and value to their time, what are you really offering when you're trying to grow your developer community? So we've kind of been on a journey doing this for the last few years. That's the purpose of this talk, is to talk about the journey that we've experienced, some of the things we've learned along the way. I think we're at a point now where something's happening, that you can see it in the data, you can see it in the momentum. And this is just a review of where we've been, things that did not work, and some of the things that did work. So in the beginning of this process, I'll kind of start when we open sourced in 2019. Excuse me. That entire year, we we were hoping to have a bunch of contributions, and we literally for the whole year had one Rex 4539, your hero. But that's not really what we had in mind. We thought that we get much more response. And as we went into 2020, things got better. As you can see, just kind of like showing here, like magnitude. We got much more contributions that year, and I'll show why in a second. But now, as we go into 2021, we're already outpacing everything that we've done as far as developer contributions just in the scope of wallets. So as I talk today, I'm really just focused on what we're doing within wallets. And we're at June, and already we've more than doubled everything we've done in the last 2 years. And if you were to project that out for the rest of the year, say continued linearly, that's literally off the charts. So what have we done that's working is usually informed by what we did that failed. So we'll start by reviewing some of the things that we tried that didn't quite work so well. We tried having hope. We hoped that we would open source, and we hoped that people would be excited about Zcash and privacy and wallets and just come flocking toward everything we were doing. And it didn't quite happen. Again, Rex, you're a hero, but we didn't get much traction just putting it out there. You build it, they will come. We built it and they didn't quite come. So after that, one of the main things that we tried in 2020 is we worked with growth and we collaborated on a hackathon. And that produced some results. That hackathon happened here right around June. And as you can see, this is just a graph of our overall contributions on the wallet repositories. There was a large camel-sized jump around the hackathon. Now, the problem here, and why I'm listing this as a failure, is that almost to a person, we didn't see those developers again. So it was great. We got a lot of energy. We were hoping it would kind of go up and to the right, and then it just really crashed right back down. So around about September is when we started being really intentional about making changes and doing things a bit differently. Um, and again, I don't want to say that the hackathon wasn't successful. It's really in a gray area because one of the things that came out of that project, we got a lot of attention around Nighthawk. Nighthawk gained visibility. They were already doing things, but the hackathon really, I think, upped their exposure, and now they're a large part of the community. I think they've kind of left their stamp, and they're continuing to have lots of great results. And But when you think of a perspective of just adding developers, we had to think about things a bit differently. And we began to focus on a few different areas. And here I'll review among those areas what are the things that have been getting results. So the first step was to just rethink what we were doing. When it comes to contributors, we have to ask ourselves, why would someone with a valuable skill set take time out? Time is money. Why would they take time away to do something for free? So for me, when I contribute to open source projects, it's typically because I use them. And a lot of times, although I use them, it's not quite meeting my needs. So my contributions come from I'm trying to do a thing and then I can't do that thing. So I'll contribute to the project and hopefully get some kind of response. And other people that we noticed at the time when we were surveying, they were interested in career advancement. So we are in a hot industry, and in cryptocurrency, the barrier of entry is really low. So you can come and join an open source project and actually get real world experience on your resume, which can help you down the line. It all basically boils down to there was some motivation. Maybe it's altruistic. Maybe people are doing things just for free. But at the end of the day, there is a motivation for each and every contributor that comes to the table. And for us as maintainers, we really have one motivation. We need help. I need help. I'm one person. There's a lot revolved with wallets, and I feel every day that everything I do comes at the expense of 5 or 6 other things I can't do. So getting that help was really important, and we started to focus on that. But prior, we were thinking about getting contributors and getting PRs and getting help. And we began to shift a bit from getting to giving. I'm not getting a PR. I'm not getting a contribution. I'm giving the opportunity for someone to leave a PR so that they can fulfill one of the objectives that they're bringing to the table. Maybe it's advancing their career. Maybe they're getting the thing that they were trying to use to work. But that subtle shift towards serving and adding value to contributors really, I think, was the catalyst towards us seeing different results. And as we begin to get people in our orbit, so to speak, there's a lot of distractions. I don't really want to call them distractions. It's not fair. There's a lot of other considerations, and even things like political or opinions. There was just a conversation in one of the sessions about should COMG be its own thing or not. Those things, I think, um, tend to be more of a distraction. And there's one thing that's always true from my perspective: the more we focus on just the work and what needs to happen, the clearer things are. So I don't know what COMG should be, and that's a process. But I do know what I need to do this week. And I know what I need to do next week. After that, it's a bit fuzzy. But focusing on what's clear has been really helpful. And then once you're focusing on, okay, here's where we need to be by July 1st, we want to be having testnet live. And okay, so if we're going to have testnet live July 1st, well, then today we need to reach out to Nighthawk. We need to reach out to these other partners. So sharing information and staying focused on the work has really been effective. And what it really boils down to at the end of the day is alignment. So in 2019 and maybe a bit of 2018, when we were starting wallets, we were seeking partners that weren't well aligned. Maybe they were larger, maybe they had millions of customers and we are just like starting to have shielded, or maybe they were in a different tech stack. And what we did in that fall around September is we just started looking for better alignment. So how do you find a project that's aligned with what you're doing? Well, everything we do is open source. So I literally went to GitHub and I typed in the word wallet and I sorted it by most recent activity. So I looked at the repositories with the most recent wallet activities, and I was looking for who is working on wallets right now. And I went through a few pages and I found about 4 or 5 projects, and I started digging into those projects. And I brought those 4 or 5 projects to the growth team, and they helped kind of sift through them. And we agreed on one project that really seemed aligned with where we were in our development process and our values, and that was Unstoppable. We partnered with Unstoppable about a month later, and it was probably one of the most successful partnerships that we've done. They were able to take Zcash and integrate it into their wallet. I think it was like in 30 days. And it boiled down to this one um, piece around alignment. The next thing that we found effective is really being everywhere. So we try to get Unstoppable to join the forum and say, hey, come to the forum. And we actually got them to join and leave a message or two. But then that was about it. And the forums are great for what the forums are great for. But they're not great for everything and they're not great for everyone. And Unstoppable in particular happened to be in Telegram. And so we went to Telegram. Paku and I literally every morning would just wake up and check Telegram and chat with them because of time zone difference. And we delivered this full integration in a really quick time, pretty much 99% through Telegram. And at that time, Telegram isn't great at everything either. It doesn't have some of the features around like maybe emojis or sharing animated GIFs or quoting conversations. So there was traction around Discord. So we tried to push everyone to Discord, and some people joined Discord. One of our major community members had an issue with Discord because they value privacy and they didn't like what Discord was doing. And they said, you know what, we really prefer Keybase. So we went to Keybase and we talked to them in Keybase. But Keybase is good as an app, but it doesn't have all of the normal app features. So we ended up on Signal. And now there's a developer group that has, a good number of developers that's just in Signal. So if you're a contributor, you have the benefit that you can really be where you want to be. But as a maintainer, it's different. You really have to be everywhere. And if you can just accept that and embrace the fact that you kind of sort of, you're never going to get everyone into the forums. You're never going to get everyone into Discord. And that's okay. What we were able to do is use that. So if you're going to be everywhere anyway, could you maybe condense all of that information into something worth reading? And so the newsletter was born out of that. Again, around that September timeframe, September 18th, we released the first newsletter. And the idea was to add value by almost leveraging the punishment, so to speak, of having to be on all these platforms. Well, if we're going to do that, let's put it into a newsletter and condense all of the information down to when someone gets to the end of that newsletter, they come away with something. And this was really effective. People enjoyed it. We've paused because we have a new developer relations person and they may be taking that over in the future. It's also a lot of work. But the main point was that in doing this, we began to find common goals in the community. One of the first things that we found was a common goal around lowering the fees. And so we worked together as an engaged community and lowered the fees from what they were to about an order of magnitude lower. And that enabled some of the things that Zbay was trying to do, some of the things the other wallets were trying to do. Was good for Zec Wallet. We actually got this into Zcash D from inception to execution. I think this is one of the most successful zips. And it was born out of this set of things that we found effective, starting with alignment and kind of rallying around a common goal. And once we have everyone rallied around that goal, we then kind of needed just touch points just to be effective. So it started with just working with one developer, and I would meet with that developer. They had career goals and they were starting a new job, and I would just meet with them just to try and find some work that they could do. And that meeting with just one developer every so often turned into two developers every so often, which then turned into a regular occurring meeting, which then became three, which became four, which I think just our last meeting, there was a couple of Android developers, a couple iOS, a couple designers. We had our DevRel person, my boss was on there, like 8 or 9 people in this meeting that just started organically. And where is it going? It doesn't have to be something that's just like so well defined and this is exactly what this meeting is for. It's really, again, focusing on the work, focusing on sharing information, where we are and where we're heading from here. So one of the main criticisms of this process that people will say is that, well, this doesn't scale. And to that, I have one answer. That's yes, exactly. That's the point. So some people may be familiar with Airbnb's story. They have a really interesting origin story that I will probably butcher, but just to give the gist of it, in the beginning of Airbnb, they didn't have a lot of customers. And they mostly had some people in New York. And one of their investors was talking to them and they're like, wait, your customers are in New York and you're here in San Francisco. You need to be in New York. And they were like, well, that doesn't scale. It doesn't make sense. They're trying to do the whole like Twitter thing and get and acquire users. And they ended up going to New York and literally knocking on the doors because they had the addresses, knocking on the doors of their people that were hosting Airbnbs under the guise of trying to take better pictures so that their listings could fare well. And in that process, they got feedback from their customers. And they had one customer that actually had a 3-ring binder just full of suggestions that became the early roadmap of Airbnb. And today, Airbnb is so massive. They have so much adoption. They could never go and meet all of their users, but there was a point in time where they could, and they did. And it led to them building the right kind of foundation for their product. And so at Zcash, as we're focusing on adoption and gaining users and getting to scale and trying to be like Big Brother and Bitcoin and these other things, in the way that they have users and the way that they have a thriving community, that's great when the time comes for that. But for now, when we have a lot of times not having users is seen as a liability, we're beginning to see it as an asset. And while we have the luxury of being able to have a high touch interaction with developers in the community, this is the time to do exactly those things. So going forward, out of this process, there's beginning to be a concept that's developing. This is not anything official, but it's something that I want to talk about next steps from here. Like, where do we go and what are we thinking about? There's a concept around new contributor bounties. And so what this would look like is it's not really payment. With Gitcoin, we literally were paying people like, please come and develop and we will give you thousands of dollars. This is not that. This is more in the same way that you might give someone a t-shirt to say thank you, that you appreciate them. Even if I was to give someone, say, $1 and that's payment, they might not be grateful. But if I give them something worth $1 like this is a token that I got at ZCon 1. And this has sentimental value because we had an experimental wallet. You could scan the QR code and send funds around. I keep this thing. Maybe it costs 30 cents, but it's a token of appreciation. And instead of incentivizing our developer community through, trying to pay their salaries effectively, there might be room for a different type of program. And what if you could have maybe exclusive swag? So you get to 10 PRs and you get a particular pair of shoes that you can only get with the Zcash logo once you've accomplished that thing. And then you take those tokens of appreciation and maybe we can pair it with something on the blockchain. We can do a physical item paired with a ZSA or a UDA or NFT, whatever you call it. But having that digital token representing the cool swag item is just a really interesting idea. So there's been a few ideas that have surfaced around these achievements. Maybe your first merge PR, or you fork a repo and get it to run locally, and you can prove that. You can create an app with our tools. So maybe not a wallet, like a parent allowance app or a savings circle. Maybe you're not a developer. You still want to get the token of appreciation. It's helpful just to file bugs. Anyone can file a bug. Anyone can find a bug. And maybe you file a bug that's important and that bug gets fixed. Maybe we should thank the person that filed the bug. And we don't have to thank them with a giant billboard check. We can literally just give them a token of our appreciation. So what this turns into really is a call to action for some type of next step from here. And I think that next step would work best if it's community driven. This idea actually originated in the community. I was working with a developer and he was adding a feature in mainnet. And he said, I don't have any Zcash to test this with. And I was thinking, like, you're literally working on Zcash and you do not have Zcash. We should be able to fix that. And ironically, it was actually difficult to fix that because you have to go through all of these channels. I do see a question coming in. I will touch on that question shortly. And so it's something that should be fixable. And I think the community really knows what it wants. In the same way that the community formed ZOMG, there's something brewing in this space around incentives for community contributions. Let me pause that, read this question. Do you have any suggestions on how to balance mentoring, assisting external contributors with the other work you're doing on the project? Yes, I'll come back to that. So here we're asking for the community to take the lead here. We quite literally, ECC can't create an incentive program easily. We're better positioned to like do the work of creating Zcash, and ZOMG might be a natural fit. Just in the last session, some of the panelists were mentioning that they would be open to this type of funding. Thing is, I can't make a zip to fund this, but the community could. ECC employees are not able to get funding from ZOMG. I wouldn't really even be getting this funding, but I think there's an opportunity here for maybe the community to rally in the same way that we rallied around ZIP 313. Maybe there's an opportunity to rally around a ZIP for funding, and funding an incentive program, maybe similar to the Prince thing that was on Reddit. You could just Google those two words, Prince Zcash Reddit. But there's been ideas around how do you add value back to people who are adding value to you. And the more we can focus on helping and giving the opportunity rather than getting help, I think at least our results have shown that that's produced great outcomes. So before I go to this last slide, this question is, do you have suggestions on how to balance mentoring, assisting external contributors with the other work you're doing on the project? I think the more you can find overlap and do both, the more effective it will be. I got advice from a personal mentor. I have a lot of kids, and one of the best pieces of advice I got on how you manage a large family and all these other requirements is find ways to kill two birds with one stone. Do two things at the same time. So maybe I am mentoring someone in the community and assisting them with their contribution, but also we kind of need to get T addresses in the app, and doing both of those things at the same time kind of helps keep balance. It's really actually very difficult to stay balanced. And sometimes we'll find ourselves in a position where we're trying to add so much value to the community that it's again, another one of those trade-offs. For every one thing you do, you have to think about the opportunity cost of what you're not doing. But if you keep a long-term view, over time, every minute that any of us invest in the Zcash community pays probably 100-fold, if not 1,000-fold down the line. So it's one of the best return on investments that we can do. Hopefully that answers the question. If not, let me know. So last thing is what's next. And I say, you tell us. This is somewhat of a shameless plug, but also like really important for the community. So we have the testnet activation of NU5 coming up. One of the main things that we on the wallet team are focused on with like laser-like precision is getting NU5 in people's hands quickly so that you can actually interact with unified addresses and shielded by default and migrating funds. We want, when NU5 activates way in the super long future of this fall, that when we get to that moment, things are as smooth as they can be. And in order to do that, again, focusing on the work, in order to accomplish that, which are things we need to do right now. And so this link here, if you're watching this, you can type in the bit.ly or you can scan the QR code. This will send you to a sign-up form. We're looking to take our internal ECC wallet that we've been using for testing and enroll additional people that are interested in helping us test. And this will be a testnet version because NU5 is not activated on mainnet yet, obviously. And we want to just add maybe about 60 more people. I don't know how much interest we'll get. So if we get a whole lot of interest, then we may have to choose, and it may be first come, first serve. But either way, we're looking for you as a community to help us to make NU5 successful and to just continue this give and take and this back and forth process of building a relationship, because we're at a phase now where building the developer community, hiring for $0,000 is really about just adding a human touch. So that's it. We have about 5 minutes left. If there are any questions, you can add them into the Discord and I will do my best to answer them. I can't see the Discord, but they will be forwarded here. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And I hope that we're able to build a better community together. I will give it just another minute or two to see if any questions come in. There are a few people typing. That is hope. So just to fill the time, um, one of another thing that you can do is you can reach out if you're interested in, if you're working on anything, particularly wallet or mobile related, you can reach out to me. You can find me, just Kevin ECC, Google around. I'm in all of those places that I mentioned earlier, and the more the merrier. If we can get anyone that's interested, or you know of someone, maybe you have a family member that is interested in contributing or maybe learning how to do mobile app development. We have time on Fridays at ECC that um, we call it Fun Fridays, but it's really doing work that's tangent to our daily activities, and that's a really good time for us to mentor or work with anyone that needs assistance. How much time does the newsletter take you? Well, um, I have got a tremendous amount of help from Elena and the growth team, and I could not do the newsletters without her help in editing and ideas and like pushing things forward. Um, it's a lot. So typically the process would be throughout the time in between newsletters. I would just kind of like collect things as I'm seeing them and just get bullet lists. And then I would go through every single project and every single repository and every single like main contributor in GitHub and just look for major commits, major PRs, and read through the notes, read through release notes, really just trying to keep my my finger on the pulse of what's happening so that I could then be like condense that down and add some value to people who might be interested in that information. So that process was ongoing, an hour a day here or there throughout the month. And then actually condensing it down into the newsletter typically took about 2 to 3 days. I would inevitably try to do it on Friday during Fun Friday time and spill over into the weekend and into Monday and maybe release it Monday. So final answer, I would say maybe 20 hours or so per newsletter. And that's just my time, and maybe multiply that by a factor for Elena's time as well. So it's a big time investment, but again, you're doubling up. So although I'm writing a newsletter, what I'm really doing is figuring out what's going on in the community and staying on top of any developments and maybe greasing the wheels of communication in the process. So that was a great question. Thank you. And I think that is about it. We're at the 2-minute warning. So if you have any last questions or thoughts or ideas, feel free to add them into the Discord. If we don't get them into the video, I can at least respond there as well. And if you're working on an open source project, I would just encourage you to learn from our mistakes and learn from some of the things that have gotten us great results. And with that, that's my time. So again, thank you. And I will follow up on Discord and Telegram and Signal and the forum and everywhere else. So enjoy the rest of the conference.